It is your Wednesday daily delivery. I am Michael Rand. Glad you guys are all back for another day. Good show coming up. Phil Miller covers the Twins for the Star Tribune. Will join me here in just a few minutes to talk about spring training, some stuff down from Fort Myers. He's been down there for a few days. Just the what it looks like down there. He had not been there obviously since the hurricane 5 months ago, and has a good report for anybody who's planning to go down there for some of the spring training games later this spring, and kind of what to expect when you go down there. We definitely talked some baseball too. A lot of players already showing up for Twins camp, even though it does not officially start for another couple days now. You got pitchers and catchers reporting today, on the field tomorrow, and the position players a few days from now. But good stuff from Phil. Hope you enjoy that. Got a wild thought at the end of the show. Not a wild thought, but a thought about the Minnesota Wild. It's not that crazy. I was going to watch your adjectives with the local teams. First, though, what did I miss? Kind of a little different today. I've got three thoughts, three things that piqued my curiosity. None of them necessarily completely connected, but I wanted to hit all three in a little bit of a rapid-style fashion. First, saw that Todd McShay from ESPN put out his first post-Super Bowl mock draft. It's definitely mock draft season as we head towards free agency and the draft in the NFL. And, all these things subject to change. Free agency comes first, and that can change what happens in the draft, what teams' draft needs are, things like that. But it was interesting to me to see that down at number 23, McShay has Jordan Addison, a wide receiver from USC, going to the Vikings. His reasoning being a good one, saying Adam Thielen's entering his age 33 season. Minnesota could take the best player available here and get a speedy, instinctive running mate for Justin Jefferson. Addison had almost 1,000 yards last year, 8 touchdowns. He had transferred from Pitt, where he had a huge year in 2021. He's saying, for those wondering why the Vikings would sidestep their defensive needs after, allowing the third most yards per play last season, he said it comes down to the board and who is the best player available. And to me, this wouldn't be a reach even if it wasn't for the board. I thought the Vikings missed last year by not adding another skill position player high in the draft. I thought it wasn't necessarily a bad idea to try to load up on defense, where Lewis Seen, Andrew Booth Jr., other guys that they picked fairly high, Brian Asamoah, things like that. But I did think that they were a playmaker short going into last year, that we were already starting to see some of, Thielen slowing down a little bit, still an effective player, but slowing down a little bit. He's got a big contract, big number, so, want to move on at some point from that. And I just felt like there were wide receivers available last year that they could have taken, that could have helped them in 2022. Now, still had a good offense last year. Justin Jefferson still flourished, but put someone else next to him that is a true bona fide wide receiver playmaker, which they don't really have right now. TJ Hawkinson helped a ton in the second half of the year, but they could really use someone who could take some of the pressure off of Justin Jefferson. I don't know who exactly that is. Maybe it's Jordan Addison. Maybe that's someone they look at, but I don't think it's a bad idea for them to be thinking offense in the first round, especially if that is the best player available. Second thing I took note of, Derek Carr getting released by the Raiders. That triggers probably a quarterback carousel here a little bit. The Raiders have been linked to various names, including a quarterback from a NFC North rival who shall remain nameless, lest I become accused again of being overly infatuated with him. But interesting that comes in tandem with that aforementioned NFC veteran quarterback going on a prominent podcast radio show on Tuesday and saying a couple of interesting things. First, saying 18 years, man, Green Bay is always going to be home. A little bit of a reflective mood, maybe one that makes you think that it is time for him to move on. He also ripped Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport, saying they're really good at their jobs. When it comes to me, they don't know bleep. Little unhappy ahead of his darkness. So we'll see how that all plays out. But that was interesting to me as well. Interesting developments in the potential quarterback carousel this offseason. Third thing, different kind of football on the pitch. Minnesota United is sounding more and more like they are preparing to play without Emanuel Reynoso. Adrian Heath addressing reporters on Tuesday, talking about Reynoso, who hasn't been in camp. It's been over a month. He got suspended on Friday by the league without pay. And Heath said this: obviously, it's a distraction we could have done without. I'd be lying if I said it didn't concern me and that I'm not disappointed. I can't change the situation. You don't lose one of the best players in the league without it playing on your mind. But the bottom line is we have a game in a couple weeks, and we have to make sure we're mentally and physically prepared for that game. So, interesting how the dynamic and how the language has changed from hoping he's coming here soon, we're getting optimistic, to now kind of being at this impasse where they have no idea what's going to happen next, and they've got to prepare for a future potentially without Emanuel Reynoso for an undefined amount of time, and maybe forever, depending on how this all plays out. So that was interesting to me, that the tone shift, and now the Loons get basically preparing 10 days from the season opener for life without Emanuel Reynoso, which will not be easy.
Take a playcation to Mystic Lake. With 24/7 gaming, the good times never have to end. And you can satisfy your cravings at our restaurants and bars. Or relax in one of our luxurious hotel rooms. Those that play together, stay together. And don't forget to join Club M so you can spark new memories and bask in the rewards along the way. Follow the lights to Mystic Lake, where every day is play day.
All right, let's bring in Phil Miller right now, covers the Twins for the Star Tribune and is in Fort Myers already for spring training. It doesn't officially start for a couple more days, Phil, as of our talk right now, but a lot of players there already. I mean, before you jumped on and before we started recording, you basically said it might as well be the start of camp because a lot of people are there already and getting in some informal workouts. Is that correct?
Yeah, and in fact, Derek Falvey told me yesterday it's the most early arrivals he's ever seen since he's been here. We were talking about that. I think the fact that they have Twins Fest fairly close to the start of camp and get all the players together in Minneapolis, I think it kind of motivates them all to, let's get going. Let's get down here. And, so there are a few notable absences. Carlos Correa, his wife is due in 3 weeks or so he's not here yet. But and Byron Buxton is always he works out extensively in the Atlanta area, and he doesn't usually come down until reporting day. But I was surprised at the number of players that are already in camp. The workouts, I think they were just planning to just do come on in and play catch, and we can throw batting practice to you, but they've been pretty official looking, though optional workouts the last couple of days, and complete with fans coming to watch.
And before we get into roster building, what we want to look for in spring training, things like that, one thing that struck me before we started recording again is just what Fort Myers looks like right now. What just you've been down there for countless spring trainings, and it's been a little odd these last few years. Last year was, labor stoppage, didn't start camp until March. The 2 years before that, certainly impacted by COVID in a big way. This year, a quote unquote normal camp from that regard, but not normal at all in Fort Myers after the hurricane 5 months ago. Give me kind of a give me a lay of the land as you've kind of observed and walked around a little bit so far down there.
Yeah, the hurricane was in September, and it was severe, and there were more than 100 people killed, and you heard about all the damage and destruction. But I'm just a Minnesotan who doesn't have much hurricane experience. I assume that there might be a few signs of the hurricane down here, but I'm here to tell you there are signs of that hurricane everywhere. This is going to take years to recover from. I said there are signs everywhere. Actually, there are no signs in a lot of places. It seemed like every restaurant, every fast food place, every pharmacy, every store that had a big sign out, with a big panel and neon lights behind it, those are all blown away. There's damage everywhere you drive around. There are a lot of places that put up tarps, temporary, because there's only so many workers to come and fix some of that stuff. And I drove down to Fort Myers Beach, where not only had the hurricane but the storm surge, the 15 feet of water coming inland from the from the Gulf, and it is. Well, I've never been to a war zone, but I imagine this is what it's like. It is blocks and blocks and blocks of abandoned, gutted houses that were underwater for a day or two, and will have to be completely torn down and rebuilt. And that's I was just flabbergasted by the amount of destruction down there, and how many places that we're used to seeing every year. You're right. I've been down here year after year, and there are a lot of places that are just gone, or in some spots the shells of the buildings are still there. But there's a large pile of broken ships
Wow.
in one place that is it's breathtaking if not for how sad it is, how much destruction there is. There is debris even back here away from the beach at the ballpark. There is piles of debris everywhere that have not yet been hauled away. I really feel for the people of South Florida here. Excuse me, you hear how bad hurricanes are, how much destruction was done. Sorry, but to see it in real life, it has really changed the city, and I think will probably change it for good. I think a lot of people are ready to sell and get out of Hurricane's path.
Wow, interesting. It's got to be kind of jarring for ball players too. I mean, obviously, this is something that happened to people in Florida, not Twins players. But if they haven't been there since September, which I imagine most of them, why would they have been unless they're doing some workouts in off season at their facility? I don't know if you've talked to any players about just the scene yet, or people who've been there for several years. But I got to imagine it's kind of jarring for a player too.
Oh yeah, and about 10 years ago, there were a bunch of Twins who had homes down here, who had long-term contracts and just bought houses here. 15 years ago now, the housing crisis, the collapse, property was really cheap down here, and a lot of players bought. So there aren't that many Twins who have places in Fort Myers, but there are a few. And I'm interested to see how much damage they absorbed, even around the ballpark. The Twins said the ballpark, the facility is owned by Lee County, and so under their contract, that the county needs to come and do the repair work, but the Twins put off asking the county to come and do that because they had a lot bigger priorities. But now a lot of the work is being done now that the camp is about to open, and there were windows blown out and water damage in all of the office spaces. They're re-drywalling the offices behind the press box up here. There were palm trees knocked down all over everywhere. The backstops on some of the auxiliary fields were blown away. The batter's eye in center field was knocked down.
Wow.
All of that is being it's almost done now. I would say that they're going to be ready for a normal camp, but even around here, there's a lot of construction, a lot of fixing up from a storm that was almost 5 months ago now.
Well, it seems a little trivial sometimes to transition from things like that to baseball talk, but we'll do the best we can here. The camp itself, pitchers and catchers, I believe, are reporting on Thursday, and you'll have position players a little bit after that. Some of the World Baseball Classic players are probably already there. Their mandatory reporting date was a little bit sooner, correct?
Yeah, and that's part of the reason why there are so many Twins here. There are half a dozen Twins on Team Puerto Rico, and they are all here starting to work out. Reporting day for pitchers and catchers is tomorrow. The first workout is Thursday. Position players' reporting day is Sunday, and first workout is Monday. Reporting day always sounds like this big official day, but actually it's just players straggling in and signing their papers and putting stuff in their lockers and leaving. So, but Thursday is pitchers and catchers on the field, really along with, like I said, 3/4 of the position players. And then full squad starts next Monday, and by by I think it's something like March 7th or so, a bunch of players will be leaving for their WBC camps, and the Dominican team will be here. They are using some of the training facilities for the Twins to prepare for the tournament.
Now, I want to get to a couple of interesting players that have been key contributors over the years here in a little bit. I want to start that you wrote about Randy Dobnak early on here in camp, who I think is interesting. I mean, for those who have forgotten, Randy Dobnak started Game 2 of a playoff series in Yankee Stadium in 2019 for a team that won more than 100 games and set a major league record for home runs in a season. And it's been kind of a nightmare for him since then. I guess the 2020 season, the COVID year, he was okay. He pitched pretty well. Since then, though, it's been just finger problems and all this stuff. Seems like kind of the forgotten man trying to kind of recapture, kind of the magic that he had, whatever was working for him, a lot of good control, the sinker, things like that. Where is he in that process right now?
Yeah, people forget that I don't think he led the team in starts in the pandemic year, but I know he had double digits. So he felt like he had established himself, and the Twins felt like he had established himself. He came to camp in 2021 and had a great camp and made the rotation. And then his middle finger on his pitching hand started bothering him, and it got worse and worse, and he pitched worse and worse. And finally, it was just painful. Finally, a ligament in his finger ruptured, and he could no longer pitch. He spent the whole 2021 season trying to rehab from that. Came to camp last year thinking that he was good to go again. First day of camp, the pain came back, and he had ruptured another ligament in his finger. It's a rare injury that the Twins don't think is something that hereditary or something that particularly the way he pitches maybe causes, but it is. I mean, he has been the forgotten man. I said, you've kind of fallen off the face of the earth here, and he said, I still exist. Tell everybody I still exist. Whether or not he can recover his career, I guess we'll find out. He is confident. He's excited to be back. He knows that he'll start the season in St. Paul almost certainly, but he feels like if he can, if the finger problems are in the past, he can make it back to the major leagues, and that's certainly his goal this year. He's the same cheerful, funny guy who realizes who never expected to have a big league career, and now realizes how lucky he is. He'd never been hurt before.
Well, yeah, it's just a remarkable story, and we've told it before, but it's been a while. I mean, he's a guy who's pitching independent baseball, right? And then all of a sudden is discovered and does, had a 1.59 ERA in limited duty, but enough that it impressed the Twins to say, hey, let's give this guy, with what was going on in our rotation, let's give him a playoff start in 2019. 2020, like you said, 10 starts, 6-4, an ERA of about 4, still pretty effective, and then just the problems in 2021, 1-7, 7.64 ERA, a guy that they were probably at that point counting on, and maybe an unsung part of what went wrong in 2021. But yeah, if he's got anything close to what he was showing in 2019 and 2020, that would obviously be a boon for them at least as depth kind of going forward.
Yeah, and I don't think he's certainly not being counted on this year. But
right.
And it's funny, Rainey and I were talking about the Twins gave him an unusual contract a couple of years ago, like $8 million over 5 or 6 years.
Right.
An unusual show of confidence in him, and he was saying, would I even be here if they didn't have that money invested in me? Because it's been 2 long years where he's been able to do next to nothing. Certainly nothing for the big league team. But he would be, if he could bounce back, if he could be anything like he was in 2019 and 2020, that would be a big addition to the Twins' depth. They have a lot of options behind their starting 5 or 6, but there's no guarantees about most of those guys are very inexperienced. There's no guarantees about what any of them are going to do. They know Dobnak has it in them, has it in there somewhere. Derek Falvey said, they've been tracking the numbers, the spin rates, and they have been trying to work with his now healed finger. They're trying to make his slider a little more horizontal break on it to make it a better pitch, and we'll see. It would be a great story if he could come all the way back, because he's well liked in the clubhouse. He's just an entertaining guy who everyone kind of roots for.
Former Uber driver. That was the oft-repeated fact in the 2019 playoffs. Before I get to Max Kepler, who we talked about before we started recording, I think it was Lavelle, or maybe it was you that I was talking to a couple weeks ago about the rotation and how it might shake out. And Bailey Ober is an interesting one for me. Do you think he winds up as a kind of bullpen piece this year, or do you think he settles into the rotation somehow? What do you think his role might be, and how important is camp for him, do you think?
Well, I follow the Twins, so I expect that somebody will get hurt and Bailey Ober's going to be in the rotation to start.
That's okay. Fair enough.
Just the way it goes.
Fair enough.
Bailey Ober was I thought he was ready for a big breakout year last year. He was my pick to surprise everybody last year. And he got off to a start that looked like that might happen, but then he had the injury problems that struck the entire team. I think his was a groin injury that limited him, that cost him a couple of months in the middle of the season, and he was never quite the same. But he is almost officially designated the sixth member of this rotation, of a five-man rotation. But given the injury history of this group of five starters in particular, and just Twins pitching in general, I expect him to be in the rotation by opening day, and if not, I would assume that they will try to keep him on the team to be ready. Last year's experience where we started series after series where Rocco couldn't say for sure who the starting pitchers were
right.
in the series. That experience, I think, will color a lot of what goes on here, but. Ober looks good, says he's ready. He knows what an opportunity he missed last year, because if he had stayed healthy, he could be as established as Joe Ryan right now. But it didn't happen, and I think he's determined to not miss his chance again.
I think I referred to their rotation last year at one point as Ryan, Gray, and TBA. That was kind of it, right? I mean, you besides those two guys, and Gray was hurt a couple times too. Like, you didn't really know what you were getting.
Yeah, Gray got hurt down the stretch for a while. They used 14 starting pitchers last year.
That's a lot. Did Sam Deduno get a start? I can't remember.
Yeah, it felt a lot like that. He's the sixth guy. He kind of sort of lost his spot in the rotation when they traded for Pablo Lopez. But I don't think he comes into it thinking that, gee, there's no room for me. I think he comes into it thinking I'm going to be part of the rotation, and we'll see how that happens.
Do you think, final thought, do you think Max Kepler comes into this thinking, gee, there's no spot for me? Kind of interesting offseason for him, interesting kind of 20, 21, 22. Like, since the 19 season, it's been that was his year, and that was a lot of people's year. I think the baseball had something to do with that, and Max took advantage of that, but it hasn't not been smooth since then. Still a very good outfielder, still a very good right fielder. Where does Max Kepler fit into the equation here as we're about to start camp?
It is a weird offseason for him because he kind of dropped out of sight. He kind of lost contact with the Twins. I think he probably heard the rumors. He had a lot of problems last year. He had an OPS below 7. He just could not find himself at the plate. I think he was fairly upset over it when he left, and so the Twins had a hard time contacting him. He didn't come to. I think he was invited to be part of the uniform unveiling. The Twins invited him to Twins Fest. He didn't come to either one of them. So I think they were surprised when he was one of the very first people to report to camp. I mean, he's been here more than a week now.
Oh, wow. Okay.
He told the Twins that he's been working hard all winter, that he seems determined. I think he probably expected to be traded. I think a lot of people expected him to be traded. When it didn't happen, we'll see. He comes to camp saying all the right things. I think Derek Falvey sound impressed. He told us he's been working all winter and he looked like it. Was what Derek said. He's so maybe it's a new, more determined Max Kepler. I mean, it's easy to say in the spring, and Max has had 2 pretty lousy years, and even the pandemic year wasn't really up to the standards he had set. But he's an interesting case. I don't think they're going to trade him now, but all of a sudden he's got to fight for his job. They brought in Joey Gallo. They've still got Trevor Larnach. Now they've added Michael Taylor. You're going to have to earn that outfield spot. No major leaguer, no active major leaguer has played more Twins games than Max Kepler. So it's strange how little you hear about him around here, but he will be. I'm really interested to see if he has found a way to put the last couple of years behind him, because you could tell it was really wearing on him at the end of the season last year.
Well, and they have made trades this deep in the offseason. It's not like they couldn't still move him if a deal presented itself or a team suddenly needed outfield depth. But you're right. It's the middle of February and he's still here. And it's not like he doesn't have value. And with all the outfield injuries they had last season with Buxton's, perpetual uncertainty, it does not hurt to have outfield depth, and certainly outfield depth that is good in the field as well. But yeah, just interesting. It did strike me when you told me that he's got the most games of any active major leaguer as a Twin. It does feel like he's a little bit forgotten at this point. You're saying he's not like really on the signage or in any of the real kind of promotion of this team, and he's been kind of a background figure for a while. I guess he doesn't strike me as an outsized personality, but maybe if he's ready to play this year and has improved in that area, maybe that's how he makes his mark right now.
Yeah, I have noticed. I took a picture of their display of come and see these players out there. They have 6 big posters, and Max Kepler, who's the senior member of this team, wasn't on them. But I tweeted it, and I got some response that said, Max isn't good, so maybe that was why. And certainly, as the Twins try to whip up excitement over the new wave coming, a guy that didn't even hit 10 home runs last year probably doesn't capture much imagination. But this is a team that usually honors its veterans, and to me, it's pretty telling that Max is kind of gone by the wayside here. But if he's determined to change that, it'd be interesting to see if he has found a way.
And as a lefty who hits a lot of hard ground balls and line drives, he could be one of the ones in the league this year who benefits more from rule changes and shift changes than others, I would imagine, too.
Yeah, I think the Twins would rather he benefit by hitting the ball in the air and deeper than hitting more singles up the middle. But they'll take what they can get. I think the extent that is going to help him is a little exaggerated.
Yeah.
But the guy didn't hit what did he get, like 225 last year. I think anything will help. But I know he didn't slug even 400. So that's more what they're looking for from an outfielder. And God bless him if he gets a few more singles. But Max, let's get some doubles and homers, I think, is the Twins thinking.
Yeah, I would think so too. Well, maybe we'll see some more of that as the spring goes on. Phil, you've got to go check out on a workout, so I'm going to let you go, but appreciate your time as always. Follow Phil's coverage from camp, Star Tribune, StarTribune.com. And Phil, we'll talk to you soon, I'm sure.
Mike, we've got an extra room in the Tribune cottage. You're welcome to come down.
Does it fit 5 people? Just kidding.
The kids will love it.
Yeah. Thanks, Phil.
All right, Mike.
Good stuff from Phil, as usual. Go check out his piece on Joan Duran as well. Joan Duran, had a great season for the Twins last year, looking to even build on that in the bullpen this year. He could be a big key for them as they try to move forward and piece together, what was a much better second half of the year bullpen than the first half. We'll see if they're able to keep that going in 2023. Let's finish with the cooler. The Wild play the Avalanche tonight, defending Stanley Cup champs. Both teams almost identical records this season, and I thought maybe Dean Evison would go with Philippe Gustafsson for a third straight game. Gustafsson playing really well in those two games, allowed 1 goal and 2 goals in regulation in those two. But Marc-Andre Fleury gets the nod. Dean Evison still has that trust in Fleury. And Fleury's played relatively well this year in a lot of games, but interesting to me to see that decision made, see how that plays out for the Wild. The goalie's starting to get asked about the lack of offense. Fleury said, we're aware maybe we're not scoring as much, but we all believe it's going to turn at some point. As goalies, I think we have enough to worry about. That's something we don't have to think too much about. Just let the players figure it out, try to keep the game close, and have a chance to get some points. Sure, it would be nice to see the Wild get their offense going at some point. Avs give them a chance to do that, so we'll see if they're able to do that tonight in a pretty important game that will have playoff implications as the year goes on. And that will do it for me today. Planning to have Dane Moore from the NBA podcast, Dane Moore NBA podcast, on Thursday's show to talk a little bit more in depth about Mike Conley Jr. and what he brings to the Wolves. That's it for me today. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday and be back at it again tomorrow.